Dan Lok, the king of the high ticket. He's one of the most successful online marketers in the history of the internet. At least that's what he wants you to think. He claims to be the world's highest paid consultant, a media celebrity, and a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. Now, most of those titles he just gave to himself. He's also appeared on TED Talks and is a best-selling author. So it's safe to say Dan Lok has a lot of different pokers in the fire. But I'll confess, when I was younger, I liked Dan Lok. I followed his Instagram, I watched some of his YouTube videos. He presents himself in a very professional way, and it resonated with me. When you see people online like Wes Watson who can't control themselves and acts like a 4-year-old child who got denied his McNuggies at McDonald's.
Why are you so negative, Wes? Why are you a p***? I think it's normal to want to smash someone's face in and be a savage who fucking could. I think it's weird to be positive all the time. I think it's fucking fake.
It's easy to brush that off and say, what a doofus. But when you have someone who looks good, speaks well, it's pretty persuasive sometimes. In this video, we're going to talk about why Dan Lok is nothing more than a phony. Dan Lok's story is very similar to Luke Belmar. Luke Belmar claimed that he came from Argentina, he had to immigrate to the US, a real rags to riches story. Dan Lok has basically the same thing. Check it out.
I was a punk kid. I grew up in Hong Kong with enough money supplied by my dad to always have $100 in my pocket. I had zero ambition. I was not interested in success. But my parents divorced when I was 16 years old, and everything changed. My mom and I immigrated to a bad neighborhood in Vancouver and a low-rent one-room apartment. My bed was a sleeping bag, and suddenly no more money in my pocket.
Hearing a rags to riches story isn't surprising anymore. It gets a lot of pull when you show you're from this poor place and you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But let's talk about where Dan Lok is from. Hong Kong is one of the richest places in the entire world. Now, I understand not everybody who lives somewhere is rich, but if you were living in Hong Kong and then you immigrate to Vancouver, Canada, both of which are in the top 20 most expensive cities in the world to live, you got some money. I found it interesting that Dan Lok said when he's growing up, he always had $100 in his pocket. That seems so out of touch with reality. When you're growing up as a teenager, do you walk around carrying Benjamins in your pocket? I didn't. But Dan Lok's nickname is the king of the high ticket. So you can imagine his go-to course, his high ticket influencer program. He promises to teach you all the secrets, make high ticket deals. All you got to do is pay him, of course. But maybe you don't want to do high ticket sales. That's perfectly okay because Dan Lok has his poker in near every course you could possibly imagine, making me wonder where did this guy learn from, because he knows how to do pretty much anything. Maybe you want to do copywriting, authority positioning secrets, unlocking the millionaire within, and I've never in my life seen someone offer so many courses than what I saw on danlok.com. And the truth is, no one is an expert in all these things. Think about yourselves. How many things do you feel confident that you could actually sit down and teach someone about? Maybe 2, maybe 3 really good things you could talk about. Dan Lok has over 40 courses on his website. There's no way someone's offering 40 quality courses. So either Dan Lok doesn't know what he's talking about or the course quality sucks. But back to the high ticket influencer program. The thing about high ticket sales, it really sucks you in with this promise of getting big returns for only a couple sales. For example, if you go out and make a high ticket sale and get $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, you think, wow, that's really cool. I want to do this. But then you realize how many people actually have that money to spend. You're eliminating 99.9% of your potential audience by making your price point so high. When I was in high school, I had a business teacher named Mr. Clark, and he told me when he was younger, he got into crane sales. Now, back when he was young, there was no internet because he was like 75, 80. But when he was coming up, he did crane sales, and it's the exact same model. You only have to sell one crane and you make, $20,000, $30,000 because they're so expensive. It sounds good in theory, but actually doing it is a lot harder than it seems. Dan's high ticket course is priced right now at $10,000, but that price has bounced around a lot over the years.
And we have different tiers of it. Clients pay anywhere from $3,000 to as much as $10,000 for this 7-week or 8-week programming.
But it comes with roughly 7 weeks of pre-recorded module content. Now, the thing about module content is it's almost always outdated because all you got to do is slap a new year on it and say, hey, look, it's 2025. No, it's actually 2019. You just put a new year on it, and since you've never taken the course before, you wouldn't know if it's 2019 or 2025. Dan Lok often brags that he's trained tens of thousands of students. It's one of his calling cards when he tries to get you to buy his programs.
And we've had over 10,000 people have gone through this particular signature program.
But I don't consider someone signing up for online pre-recorded modules to be training someone in any way. That's like me going and saying, I trained you because you watched my YouTube video. It just doesn't make any sense. Training involves one-on-one interaction, coming up with a plan, working with advisors, a team, something, not just watching modules online. And a lot of students were frustrated because they actually wanted to work with Dan Lok, only to find out that he's unavailable, and he purposefully makes it that way. Check out what Dan Lok says when students want to work with him.
I get so many requests from you, from people all around the world, asking me to mentor them, and I know that I'm not very accessible, and I purposely make it that way because for my own insanity.
Now, Dan makes it seem like his time is why he's unavailable to his students, but it's not time. It's the fact he doesn't think you're worth it. Because if you look on Dan's website, he offers programs where you can talk with him. You can have a one-on-one session for an hour, a half day, or a full day. That's going to cost $25K for an hour, $40K for a half day, or $70,000 for one day with Dan Lok. Those prices are delusional. Let me tell you all the stuff you could get for $70,000. A first-class round-trip ticket to Tokyo, Japan, a new MacBook Pro, courtside seats to 2 NBA games, dinner at 3 Michelin star restaurants, a full week at an all-inclusive luxury hotel in Paris. You could start a Shopify store or personal brand page. I'm talking branding, sites, domains, all of it. You could run a $10,000 Facebook or YouTube ad campaign, which would basically guarantee monetization since you're dumping that much money into it. You could buy a professional camera and lens setup. You can hire an editor and thumbnail designer for an entire year, get a virtual assistant from the Philippines, have a year of a gym membership, boxing club membership, or yoga studio membership. And if you're in a place like the United States, you could get a premium health insurance plan for the entire year, or you could get one day with Dan Lok. It's a pretty hard choice, huh? But let's look inside the actual high-ticket program. I found this customer testimonial on Reddit, which is pretty interesting because he talks how Dan spends more time talking about mindset and motivational content than actually how to find influencers and close deals.
The first 2 weeks, the first 2 classes are nothing but the brainwashing, I call it.
Yeah.
They want you to feel like you're already rich and that you have abundant money, and that you love money, and get you in a happy place where you're motivated.
And it was basically just mindset training for the first 2 weeks. I don't even remember what it was. Just a bunch of horse shit. Like stuff you find in a Tony Robbins book.
By far, the biggest problem for anyone wanting to get into high-ticket sales is how do you find the customer? But this person pointed out that Dan purposefully avoided sharing the information on how you find influencers to make these big deals until after the refund period ended. And then Dan gave very ambiguous, shallow answers, basically saying, go figure it out yourself.
Then comes the last 2 weeks, which is about how to get a job. And this was the one I'm like, all right, let's hear it. And he's like, all right, so here's what you do. You be nice to them, you give value, and they'll give you a job. What kind of jobs can you get with closing? Well, you can sell cars, boats. The sky's the limit, man. Just go out and sell shit. I'm like, oh, I thought there was like a process to this. Okay.
If you go look today at Dan Lok's site, the refund policy is completely different. Back then it was a 6-week refund period, but today, no refunds, period. So basically, you put your money in here, it's trash, you ain't getting it back. Anyone with a legitimate course, good ratings, good reviews would be glad to offer, a 7-day, a 14-day, some type of refund if you say, hey, I'm not really feeling it. But since Dan Lok doesn't offer that, it really goes back to the idea of what this guy is saying, that the course is just fluff. Because Dan knows a majority of people would say, hey, give me my money back, this is trash. And when it comes to the motivation and mindset, you see all these coaches trying to peddle this like it's some valuable secret, like, oh, change your mindset and you're going to become a millionaire. No, you're not. You're not going to become a millionaire by changing your mindset or going and hearing this motivational speech. No, you're going to be more likely to give them money, but you're not going to be more likely to go and be a millionaire just because you listen to that crap. Like most coaches, Dan Lok offers live Q&A calls, but it's nothing like a one-on-one or personal interaction.
And once a week, you get a 4-hour live call with Dan that he teaches all of his HTC people at the same time. And it's actually, you actually use Discord, crazy enough.
There's some people out there that say Dan Lok fakes his calls. I don't know how true that statement is. But even if you do get on a call with Dan Lok, given the tens of thousands of students he claims to have, you'd be lucky to even get to ask a question. You're in a big cesspool with a bunch of other Lok students. But even if you do get a chance to ask a question, Dan's answer would probably be to pay for his inner circle or one of his many other upsells. But it's hard to make upsells when customers aren't satisfied with their initial purchase. They say the program is fluff, it's not worth a fraction of what it's being sold for. In fact, one person compared it to a very basic basic sales 101 course. So you could take maybe $500, go down to your local community college and take a course on sales and actually learn, like, how do you cold call? How do you close? Business basics, things you could actually use. Or you can drop 10K on this guy who's going to give you some modules that he probably made in a rented house 5+ years ago. The most valuable skill Dan Lok has is not his marketing, it's not his communication, it's his understanding of human nature. Dan Lok understands when humans see that someone else has a secret, you want to know what that secret is, even if it has nothing to do with you or the secret is worthless. And that's exactly what Dan does. He makes videos sharing that he has these keys to freedom. And I know that because when I was younger, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, wow, I wonder what that secret is. And to be honest with you, don't flame me in saying this, I actually considered for a second signing up for one of Dan's courses. Now, I didn't do it, of course, and for good reason, but Dan fully plays on human desire. And he knows if you hold a secret for so long, eventually people will pay you any amount of money to know what that secret is. I went to Dan Lok's Better Business Bureau page and it specifically says he is not BBB accredited. This is a bit concerning to me because why would Dan Lok not be accredited? He claims to have trained tens of thousands of students, made hundreds of millions of dollars, be the world's highest paid consultant. Why did they not give this out? Because they gave it to Tai Lopez, and I covered Tai Lopez in one of my other videos. That guy's been doing shady stuff for decades.
In the Inner Circle program, he encourages you to do affiliate marketing to try and sell HTCs. Like, I'll give you $500 for every program you sell.
So anytime I see a review that has a link to Dan Lok's site or course, I automatically assume that it's an affiliate link and that it's not a genuine review. But the idea of telling your students, hey, go sign other people up for this and you get a commission, that's just a pyramid scheme, or I guess you could call it multi-level marketing, but it's basically the same thing. And all the kickbacks go right up to none other than the king of the high ticket, Mr. Dan Lok. But I have to be clear in saying something. Even though it's structured that way, it's not a pyramid scheme because he offers a service. He claims to teach you all this stuff, but in my opinion, the game is clear. He would love nothing more than for you to go out here and try to peddle his course. And that's frankly what a lot of people do. And I think a lot of his success comes not from his own promotion, but from the promotion of others because they know they're going to get a kickback. Now, there's two reasons why someone might promote this crappy program. The first one is you want to make your money back. If you sign up for this course and you realize I dropped $10,000 on a bunch of garbage, but if I go and peddle this garbage, to 2-3 other people, I'll get that money back. You're going to be motivated to go and sell it even if it's trash. Alternatively, if you actually enjoy the program or you just want to make money in general, which most people do, you're going to be willing to go and sell this program. You basically have a high ticket program right here. And in my opinion, I imagine Dan Lok is probably saying, hey, you want to work on your sales? Here, go promote this program. But either way, it's pretty easy to see that these students would promote it. I want to talk about two other things in particular that really calls out Dan Lok and makes me think he's a complete con artist. The first one, as I just said, he incentivizes the reviews. The second thing is he claims to be trained in Jeet Kune Do, I probably mispronounced it, I'm not a martial artist, by Bruce Lee students Ted Wong and Joe Louis.
Okay, today I'm going to show you the JKD trapping drill laps out.
Now, this might not seem important in the grand scheme of things, but if you lie about something so small, it leads me to think you're going to lie about stuff a lot more important. Many people accuse Dan Lok of using martial arts as nothing more than a publicity stunt. But the truth is, martial arts is a serious commitment, especially Asian branches of martial arts. It takes years and even sometimes a lifetime commitment to fully master the craft. So attending 1 or 2 sessions here or there, it doesn't make you an expert. And frankly, it doesn't even make you a student because it requires more of a commitment than that. But the biggest issue here is where Dan Lok is located. He's in Vancouver, Canada, and Ted Wong, who he claims to learn from, is in San Diego, California. Now that's a 24-hour difference by car. Now sure, Dan Lok could fly in and out, but are you telling me the $70,000 a day man is going to be flying every week in and out? Extremely unlikely. But I'll tell you what I think is going on here. Ted Wong and Joe Louis are both dead. Wong died in 2010, Louis in 2012, so there's no possible way for the two of them to contradict what Dan Lok says. But check this out. Who are these teachers? They're students of the legend Bruce Lee, someone who has incredible pull both in martial arts and in pop culture in general. So Dan Lok knew, if I tie myself to Bruce Lee, I will be able to get more pull, more credibility, and ultimately convert more sales. But the third and final nail in the coffin is Dan Lok's claim as the world's highest paid consultant. He claims to have worked with million and even billion-dollar businesses. Why would a business call Dan Lok in when he has little to no experience building corporate businesses? He has a great personal brand, sure, but a personal brand and a corporation operation are extremely different. Let's imagine hypothetically that a company did want Dan Lok to come in and consult. Dan's whole platform is based on sales. But if you have a billion-dollar company, they clearly make a lot of sales, way more than Dan Lok has ever made, so you're not going to consult him on that. The other option is Dan Lok is drastically overestimating the amount of consulting that he does. So in a best case scenario, Dan Lok has lied. In a worst case scenario, he's made the entire situation up. But regardless, this guy is not the world's highest paid consultant. Doubling down on my theory that Dan Lok is nothing but a con artist, let's go back a couple of years ago when a story broke that Dan Lok was sued for $420,000 in unpaid rent. He had this home in Vancouver which he portrayed like he owned, he made videos in it, used it for footage, you know the deal with these coaches. But in reality, he was renting for 35 grand per month, which I gotta go on a little side rant here. I think that's absolutely nuts. $35,000 a month in rent. There's no rationalization in the world that could get me to do that. You could go and buy 3 apartments in Bangkok, Thailand for that. Now it's gonna be in an older building, but still, you could get 3 apartments. You could buy a new car. You could buy a plot of land. You could buy an actual asset instead of just throwing it away. 35 grand per month. Crazy how people do this. But I find it funny the guy who's not even paying his own rent is trying to go online and give people business and financial advice. Absolutely nuts. He tried to weasel his way out of it and say, well, the house was in poor condition. I shouldn't have to pay it. But here's the deal. Dan Lok renewed his lease. If the house was so bad that you felt like you shouldn't have to pay for it, why did you renew the lease for another term? The truth is, the house was actually in great condition, but after Dan Lok came in, then the house was left in disarray. So in some sense, Dan Lok was telling the truth. The house was tore up, but he conveniently left out the fact that he was the one who tore it up. There's no public record as to what happened in this case, but we can reasonably assume who won. Dan Lok is clearly not the baller he wants you to think he is. But Dan understands something very important. If you have a secret, people will pay to know what it is. At his core, Dan Lok is a course salesman. That's what he's done from the beginning, and it's what he's gonna do probably to the day he dies. He has so many courses on his site, I don't even know which one to choose. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna pay for one, but one of the big problems people like Dan Lok has is how much information do you share online in pursuit of gaining a social media following versus how much do you gatekeep behind a paywall? And Dan Lok has so many videos online talking about business, marketing, finance, that I can't imagine what Dan Lok actually gatekeeps behind a paywall. Why would I pay him $10,000, even $500 for that matter, when I can go over to his YouTube channel and watch hundreds and hundreds of videos getting basically the same information I'd have to pay for on his site? I think Dan Lok makes a fraction of the money he actually claims, because ultimately people have woken up to Dan Lok and his schemes. If you look at his YouTube page now, he gets a fraction of the views he used to get a few years ago. And honestly, when it goes around you can't pay your rent, yeah, that'll do it to you. And truth be told, you don't have to have breaking news all the time for someone to understand the nature of how someone is. If someone's been doing the same thing for 5, 10 plus years, they're gonna continue doing it. I have no reason to think Dan Lok's ever gonna change his low-level programs. Frankly, I have no reason to think that he's gonna go and start wanting to pay his rent on time now either. But guys, I wanna thank you so much for your support on this channel. You guys have been the best. The support has been off the charts. I've got a lot of requests for someone, Mr. Grant Cardone, and I'm working on that video right now, guys. Right now, it's 50-50 if I'm gonna get it out next week. I got a lot more still to do. If not, I'll have it out in 2 weeks. But guys, thank you so much. Y'all have a nice week. I'll see you next time.